Mm. So, Tim, as you kind of look at, obviously, we talked about a smaller class. We talked about some of the offensive linemen that were in that class. The headliner outside of him of Puma is Danny Odem, right? How did you process Coach Rhule's comments on the conversation he had with Odom about John Butler leaving and Addison Williams being here, and hey, at the end of the day, you're playing for me and I'm not going anywhere. Like, how did that kind of land with you? Because it doesn't seem like we get that much transparency about those conversations very often.
Mm.
Yeah, that was really interesting, and I think with Odom, I mean, I also thought there was a Nebraska was able to kind of do that just because it's, Butler, obviously the DC, and you do risk with a recruit like Odom, any type of change late can shake up that recruitment, can open up just a slight window of opportunity for another program, but the relationship here was always Addison Williams, and to pair with Addison Williams was Matt Rhule from the first visit. It was Addison Williams and then also Matt Rhule that was leading the way for Odom and Devin Jackson's teammate. But yeah, with Odom, it was, I mean, credit to Addison Williams for again, he this is a relationship he built back at UCF. Didn't have the opportunity to really go after him at UCF, but as soon as he got to Nebraska, this was the guy he prioritized. Got on campus in February, got him back on campus for a spring practice, got him locked in for an official visit, fended off Ohio State and Oklahoma and Clemson for the first time around. And then Ohio State and Michigan, were in that mix through the summer, through the fall, did not let up. Clemson joined in, like it was I just put up our behind the scenes story, but they were sweating a little bit pretty much until Danny Odom sent Matt Rhule the lock emoji on Wednesday morning saying he was locked in and signing. So pretty much until that moment, he said he shut his recruitment down a couple weeks ago. I mean, with the late coaching turnover, like that obviously meant something, but it didn't necessarily, you're still sweating with a guy like that. So, in terms of what Nebraska's getting there, like that's a guy that's coming to take jobs in the secondary. That's a guy that I love his senior tape. I love his instincts in coverage, his natural stickiness. I think he does a really good job of squeezing guys to the sideline, utilizing his length, and he's a strong individual for his size. And the biggest question with him going into his senior year was like just how he'd be able to play up at the weight. Like he had done really well on the 7-on-7 circuit. He played really well as a junior, but he was closer to like 165, 170 then. Obviously not a playable weight at the power four level as an outside corner. He's up to 180, 185 now. He's going to be probably 190, 195. And man, he held it really, really well as a senior, was sticky in coverage. And so, yeah, I mean, your one question with him, I think long term is going to be just the top end play speed. He's a 4.6 guy. But I mean, in 7-on-7 on the field, he's been like in phase on quicker, faster receivers. It hasn't really mattered. He does a good job utilizing his length, utilizing more short area acceleration and short area athleticism to stick in coverage. I'm a huge fan of his game, huge fan of the playmaker he is. And again, like I just think it's going to be one of those things, like the guys that the media around here, it's going to be like day one spring ball or the first time they get access to practice. It's going to be like, whoa, look at Danny. Like Nebraska's a 6'2" corner out there, and he looks really good. Like that. It just wait. Like you're going to see that first day of spring ball.
Yeah, I always try to glean information. I like listening to, the player interviews when Jess is talking to him. She kind of has this way of like getting them to just different angles to get them to open up, right? And so I want to jump to Luke Sorensen because she's asking him kind of these lines of questions about his development and kind of where he came from. And, he just casually dropped that he started out as a tackle, where and there were a couple of these guys that started out playing different positions, D tackle to, wide receiver, which was a weird transition for a couple of guys in this class. But Sorensen, I was interested listening to him talk to her because he talked about how he was not a natural pass catcher early on. He was more of an inline guy. He started out as a tackle. Then I watch his film, and I'm thinking, wow, he's a good hands catcher. Can stick you at the top of routes. I don't know how much of a separation guy he's gonna be, but he makes contested catches. His frame's gonna trim down a little. He's kind of I don't know if he's a sleeper, Tim, but he looks like a guy that has potential to be better than kind of how we're talking about him, or maybe Is just the prevailing thought because we're a little bummed about the size of the class. Are those two separate things for me?
I think so. I think Sorensen's like one of the guys I'm anticipating contributes as a freshman, and a guy that was a big like legit recruiting win. You look at the other offers he had. Look at that recruitment when it took off. I mean, again, like I stress this when Nebraska landed his commitment. This is a guy that Penn State and James Franklin at the time, Penn State and James Franklin were pitching on being Tyler Warren, like coming to Penn State and playing the Tyler Warren role. They specifically like circled him as the guy they wanted to play that role. And then they pivoted once they realized this was a recruitment they were losing footing in. It came down to Nebraska, Ole Miss, and USC, UCLA were involved. There were a couple other programs involved. Texas and A&M had both offered. Miami had offered. Like programs that had done this at a high level at the tight end position wanted him badly. And you talk about his like wanting to be a tackle. He's got big features, man. He's got huge feet, huge hands. I think that's part of the transition as a pass catcher. And I think why I'm a little encouraged from him long term. You talk about the separation stuff. Yeah, that might not be there necessarily for him, but I think his big hands, his natural body strength, I think allows him to be can allow him to be a really good contested catch guy across the middle.
Really good body control for a guy
Yeah.
that isn't always used to be. You know what I mean? Being out in space, he's very good with his body control, which I actually think is a very underappreciated skill when we're assessing athleticism. Is just watching body control, like balance, seemingly when both feet aren't on the ground. Like,
I look at that a lot.
Really good. Me too.
Yeah, it's something, but it's more anecdotal for me than it is like I don't think it's something you can really measure. It's more of just like, hey, this guy looks really in control of his athleticism, and I look at that as like a guy that I think for Sorensen, and it comes in different ways. For some guys, it's playing the position for a really long time and developing some of the little nuances. I thought Andrew Marsh, who's at Michigan now, I think that's him. Like Andrew Marsh is a guy that just played the position, knows the nuances, very in control of who he is and what he is. With Sorensen, he's got a judo background. He's got a multi-sport athletic background, like some baseball, and like there's a bunch of different sports back there. I think all of that allows him to be. He's very well balanced. He's very in control. I think a lot of that stems from that judo background, at least in my opinion. In terms of you look at his play, he's a guy that's always finding himself on his feet, always balanced. Again, that you see some of that judo and how he blocks, how he like he's just. He's fun, man. He's a lot of fun. There's a clip in his senior tape where he's blocking Marcus Fakatu, the number 2 defensive lineman in the 27 cycle, who's 6'7", 295. And he just gets under him, moves him out of the way, and it's like, whoa, he's got 50 pounds on you. Like that should not be happening. But I think that's a guy that's going to be competing for playing time in 12, 13 personnel. Like he was pitched on by Dana Holgorsen on being a weapon in this offense. I really think this offense and the staff plans to feature him pretty early here in his career.
Last one for me on the recruiting class before we get to the defensive stuff. Nayland Scott, 6'2", 210. He's physical. I like his toughness. Again, a guy that seems naturally competitive. How about the little tidbits about how he grew up a D tackle? He's like, yeah, before, I think he told Jess, he's like, yeah, before I trimmed down, I was a little bit of a fat boy. Or, something. I was just like, wait, what? And the only real thing I could remember is I played with a guy in Clinton Childs who in 7th and 8th grade was playing O-line. And I was like, yeah, this guy's not probably an O-line. But like when Nayland Scott said that, I was like, D-tackle. But you can tell when you talk to him and you watch his film, we're back to this tough, competitive thing. It seems to be really, really intentional, especially with a guy like Scott.
Yeah, I mean, every one of these guys, they're tough, they're physical. I think you look at like every single member of this class, they have something in there. There's a competitive edge in there. You see it on tape, you see something, there's a chip on their shoulder, there's something in there. With like Larry Miles is another one who that guy competes, everywhere
he gives me Santana Moss vibes. Like a lot of people, like, I just remember him because we're almost the same age, and just watching him. He reminds me a lot like these little mean-spirited, twitchy 45-degree angle. He'll battle for balls. He's got really, I don't know about top end, but laterally playing at 45 is like explosive. He gives me Santana Moss vibes, and Santana Moss was mean spirit. Like you talk about
Oh, yeah.
competitive for a local, like that's who these. That's it seems to be really really intentional what they're looking for.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I mean, both those guys, nailing, they're coming in head down, getting to work. Like you're going to see that from both of those guys. I think early on in their careers too is they're going to earn their spots on the depth chart. They're going to battle for playing time. They're going to push guys for starting spots. The thing with Nalen, I'm really curious. He missed some time as a senior due to injury, so I'm curious where he's at. In terms of his recovery, if he's 100%. And for him, I think there's still some untapped developmental upside there. I think in terms of he can continue to improve his athleticism while I think doubling down on some of the stuff he does really well as an outside receiver. But you love what he can do in contested catch situations. You love his route running ability. A guy that again another high floor member. Like again, I look at this class and I mean I've push for it behind the scenes. But like, I don't think a lot of these guys are one fairly ranked, but two, like I think when you look at rankings, you look at a lot of times on, you see guys outside of like way low on the 3-star rankings. You're like, oh, like, and then you look at the offers and you're like, oh, but then you look at the player, you look at the tape, and you're like, oh well, this is a guy that is a pretty high floor prospect with some developmental upside. Like Nebraska was actually picky. Like again, you can blanket and say, again, I've seen it from people out there that don't follow this thing. I get it. Like, it's tough to follow recruiting this day and age, but they were like, oh, Nebraska like just kind of punted to the end and just kind of like we're really lazy in how they ended the cycle. That's not what happened here. They knew they had a limited amount of spots, and the guys they took, they were very intentional with how they used each spot. Every single one of these guys are guys they feel they can contribute at some point in this program within the next 2 to 3 years, if not sooner.
Tim, how much of this? I mean, we don't have to stay on this for very long, but the max number for this class was always less than 15, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a little. I mean, I was a little surprised to see you end where it was at 10, and to not land a D lineman, to not add an edge rusher, like that is unfortunate. And I think something that I was a little disappointed in and pretty surprised by just the fact that we got to this point and they had none of that in the class. But at the same time, like I think there was a very conscious at some point mid-season, if it wasn't the first bye week, it's the second bye week, of assessing where this team is at, what they need to take a step forward in 26, looking at what's out there in the high school ranks, looking what's needed to be done in the high school ranks, and essentially making a decision to say, hey, we're going to turn around and use the portal. Because one, you're more likely to find instant impact out of the portal. Two, if you're smart with how you use the portal, if you're smart in how you evaluate, which again, it sounds like they have a better plan this year with Pat Stewart and his scouts and all of that. Like if you have an idea of what you're doing and you attack this thing with a plan, you can really improve your team if you're smart in your evaluations and you're smart in who you seek out. I think Nebraska's being very proactive about that process. I think they're going to attack Jan 2nd through the 12th with a sense of urgency, the portal with a sense of urgency. And that was part of the calculus here of like, okay, well, let's save one, NIL and resources on that front, and two, roster spots to find guys that can improve this roster from day one. Like, yeah, like Danny Odem, Luke Sorensen, maybe Rex Waterman, maybe a Jamal Rhule, maybe a Nalen Scholar. Like one of those, like some of those guys may contribute as freshmen. More often than not, though, I can say a lot of these guys are high floor. I think less than half of them end up contributing in a meaningful role as true freshmen. So that's where I think when you look at Nebraska and what they're doing in the portal, they need guys that can contribute now. Like they need guys that can add to this roster, like from the moment they step on campus. Those guys are coming out of the portal, not really coming out of the high school ranks.